Good morning. Welcome to our Wednesday morning weekly Tanya Shir. Thank you for being here a few days before Pesach. Please continue to enjoy cooking your borscht or your applesauce while we study Tanya together. We are in the middle of Perek Vav of Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna. If you have a Hebrew Tanya, we're on Daf Pei Aleph, Amud Aleph. If you have an English Tanya, we're on page 901. By the beginning of the 18th or 19th day of Sivan, by the words V'Lachein. So the Alter Rebbe here is talking about how it would be inaccurate or insufficient to compare Hashem's relationship with the world to the relationship between the neshama and a guf. Now, to be clear, although the Alter Rebbe does not bring this here, the Alter Rebbe does bring it in Likutei Torah and in other places. We do find that Chazal, that the Medrash does compare Hashem's relationship with the world to the relationship of a neshama and a guf, of a body and a soul. We do find that ma neshama machayas a guf, just as a soul gives life to the body, afakacha kodesh baruch hu machayas olam umamalas olam, so Hashem fills and gives life to the world. So the Alter Rebbe isn't saying that the analogy between the analogy of a nefesh of a guf is not appropriate at all. What he's saying here is that it doesn't completely capture the extent of the relationship between Hashem and the world. And the essence, we're going to learn this inside today, but the essence of the explanation is that, bottom line, when we talk about a neshama and a guf, a nefesh of a guf, a body and a soul, we talk about a soul giving life to a body. We talk about a soul giving the body all of these abilities to walk, to talk, to think, etc. But we don't really talk about the soul giving the body its existence. The body exists without the soul, although the body without the soul would just be perhaps like a dead stone, inanimate, unable to move or do anything, but it would still exist without the soul. As opposed to when we talk about Hashem's relationship with the world, we talk about how without Hashem's being, without Hashem's presence, the world just simply would not exist at all. Okay, I'm going to go from the words of V'Lachein. V'Lachein hutzrach hakosef. Therefore, it was necessary for the Possuk lahazir to warn us, Veyadata Hayom Vahashevosa el Levovecha. So if you remember at the beginning of Perek Aleph, the entire Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna is based on this Possuk, Veyadata Hayom. You should know today, Vahashevosa el Levovecha. You should apply it to your heart. You should take to heart, Ki Hashem hu Elokim. The Alter Rebbe started, the whole Tanya starts, the whole Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna starts with a question. Would you really think that there is some other God lurking, somewhere in the water, underneath the earth, that the Torah has to warn us, not just that you should know, but Vahashevosa Levovecha? So the Alter Rebbe is going to give the answer. The answer is the Possuk is not here to tell it. The Possuk is not here to exhort, what's the word? To warn us, to caution us that we shouldn't think that there's some other God, but rather you shouldn't think that the heavens and everything inside it, and the world and everything inside it, is an independent existence. And Hashem fills the world as a soul fills a body, right? When a soul fills a body, the body exists on its own. The soul fills the body. And would give the ability for things to grow in the ground, and for the cycles to move, and moves them, conducts them as he wills, just as the soul moves and conducts itself with the body as it will. Says the Alter Rebbe, in truth, ein hamoshel doimel lenimshel klal. The moshel of a nefesh, of a guf, of a body and soul, cannot be compared to the nimshel of Hashem and the world at all. Can neshama v'aguf, because bottom line, with body and soul, in their source, from where they were created, from at the root of their very existence, they're separate. Ki ein hishavus shoyresh haguf v'atzmusoi minishmasoi. Because at the end of the day, the shoyresh haguf, the source of the body and its essence, doesn't come from the soul. Elo rather the body has its own source. It comes mitipas avivimoi. It comes from the contributions made by mother and father who conceived this child, and even after the child is born. The growth that the body experiences is not just from the soul, but rather the mother, even while the woman is pregnant, the food that the mother eats and drinks nurtures the child for 9 months. And then once the child is born, the child eats by themselves. So bottom line, no matter how much we're going to talk about the relationship between body and soul and the dependence of soul upon body, of body upon soul, etc., bottom line, at the end of the day, there's still two separate existences. As opposed to when we speak about the heavens and the earth, their very existence, their entire existence, this was created from absolute nothingness. Only Hashem's words and the breath of his mouth brought it into existence. And again, Hashem's words remain there forever. And is constantly influencing them, is constantly flowing into them every second. And is constantly recreating them. As we learned before, the existence of the world can be compared to the light of the sun as it exists within the sun itself. Okay, so just the point Alter Rebbe is saying is that this is what the Possuk Veyadata Hayom Vahashevosa Levovecha is coming to teach us, that at the end of the day, not just that there's no other God other than Hashem, but as this explains at great length, that there's no other existence. This is the beginning, this is the source of it all, that nothing else really truly exists. Nothing else exists outside of Hashem. And even the world that does exist, the very essence, the very core, the very root of its existence, comes from within Hashem, right? Comes from within Hashem. And Hashem creates it and brings and constantly propels it into existence, right? Every single second, etc., etc. And so this, again, just to be clear, this is the meaning, this is the way the Alter Rebbe explains according to Chassidus, the meaning of the Possuk Veyadata Hayom Vahashevosa Levovecha Yashem Ulakim Einoid. I've heard, we'll take a few minutes and just elaborate on this. I've heard some of the Tanya teachers, when they teach this idea in Tanya, they give a very interesting analogy. I don't believe the analogy was ever given by any of the Rabbeim, or, I don't know if it was given by great Chassidim. I don't know the source of the analogy. But the analogy it's a good one, and it's appropriate, in my very humble opinion. So the analogy is, say, for example, a person is having a dream, right? And in the dream, something's happening in the dream. Could be something positive, could be something negative, whatever the case may be. Something is happening. I don't know, I'll give a silly example, right? The person is, God forbid, being attacked by a lion, right? Rahman al-Islam, in the dream. So now the person's in the dream, right? They don't necessarily know that they're in a dream. They're experiencing something, and in their dream, they're being attacked by a lion. So what does a person do in their dream if they're being attacked by a lion? So right? So you can run away from the lion, you can attack the lion, you can get other lions to attack this lion, depending on how your fight or flight reaction is gonna react to this. This is you're gonna dream up all of this, and then we all have these types of dreams. Most of them, of course, are silly, where we're running from things and they're chasing us or whatever the case may be. Now, again, at the time that the person is having the dream, it can seem very real. The dream can seem very real. The lion can seem real. The roar, even the emotional reaction that this particular dream elicits within us can be a very, very really feeling reaction. We can wake up, we can sweat, the heart rate goes up. We can imagine ourselves running, we can imagine ourselves panting, we can imagine ourselves getting exhausted, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Again, some things to one degree or another we're all relatively familiar with. Now, one thing that will never ever happen in the dream truly is that we'll never be truly completely destroyed, right? I don't mean to speak negatively, chas v'shalom. I'm just bringing out an analogy. A person will never ever chas v'shalom be destroyed, right? Sometimes a person has a dream that they're falling. So when you land, so to speak, in the dream, you either get up and walk away in your dream or you wake up. But it wouldn't be possible for a person to actually die in their dream. May Hashem protect us. They can dream that they've died, but even then they're still there to see that they're alive. Why? Why not? Because the bottom line is that the dream is imagination, and the imagination is taking place within a living person's brain. To the best of our limited knowledge, once a person passes on, then there's no more brain activity. So we don't experience these types of dreams. The body at least doesn't experience these types of dreams. The neshama can still see things, of course, but the body doesn't experience it. So a person cannot actually, it sounds silly, but just to bring out a point, a person cannot actually really die in their dream. They can dream that they've died, but they'll still very much be alive. And the truth is that no matter what type of danger it is that the person is facing in their dream, there is a very simple solution to this danger, at least in theory, and that is for the person to wake up from their dream. Now, they may not necessarily be in control of that, but at some point the person will wake up, please God, or be woken up, and at that point the dream is completely gone. So let's say the person is in the middle. Let's finish the analogy. This is the person is in the middle of dreaming that the lion is chasing them, right? And they're sweating, huffing and puffing and shooting and roaring and stutzach, right? And then, boom, they wake up. And the person wakes up, takes a look around. Whew! Very relieved. Thank God there was a dream. Baruch Hashem, everything is fine. Okay. Now you'll come over to the person who's just woken up and you say to them, tell me, 10 seconds ago, you were being chased by a lion. What happened to the lion? Did you shoot it? Did you kill it? Did somebody else kill it? Why do you all of a sudden feel such relief, right? Is the lion outside your house and you're inside your house? Were you mistaken? Were you not really being chased by a lion, right? What happened? So it's a silly question, but this is the analogy. The answer is, what do you mean? The entire experience was taking place within the context of my imagination. As soon as I was liberated from that imagination, from that thought, the whole thing was a figment of my imagination. It was actually, there was no real lion. It was just being produced by my own thinking about a lion. Yes, I emotionally reacted to it. Yes, I had the full gamut of the experience. And again, in the case of a dream, I wasn't even necessarily aware that I had produced this through my imagination. I was fooled in the course of the dream to think that this was real. But it was all taking place within my imagination. Once that imaginative experience is over, nothing is left of that imagination, of that dream. Well, where did it go? Nowhere. It completely ceases to exist. Why does it doesn't have to be destroyed, it just ceases to exist. Why does it cease to exist? Because its entire existence in the first place was just a figment of my imagination. This is the mashal that they give, and it's a very powerful one. Because when we speak about the Eibashter creating a world, we're not talking about Hashem going out of himself and creating something other than himself. We're talking about something that takes place completely within the context of Elokus, right? That's why the Alter Rebbe keeps going back to the mashal of the Oir HaShemesh, the light of the sun, as that light exists within the sun. Hashem creates a world, but that world, the entire and only existence of that world remains completely within Hashem. And that's in the end, the ultimate difference between the relationship between Hashem and the world and a body and a soul. When a soul gives life to a body, the soul does not remain within itself. Actually, the soul has to go out of itself, whatever that means, in order to give life to the body. If the soul will remain completely within itself, then the body won't live. There has to be an investment. There's got to be some kind of investment, if you will, of the soul in the body, so that the soul can be bound. We call it hislapshus and nefesh b'aguf. But the soul encloses itself in the body, and now the body starts. The life of the body is not just a figment of the soul's imagination. It's not just taking place within the world of the soul itself. This is taking place within the world of the body, because the body is outside of the soul. As opposed to when Hashem creates the world, we're talking about we use the example of the Torah used the example of Hashem's speech. But unlike a human being's speech, where when they speak the words leave them, when Hashem speaks, Hashem's words don't leave him, because there's nothing outside of Hashem. There's nowhere outside of Hashem for these words to go. So when we say Hashem speaks, we just mean some type of a revelation or an expression, but it's an expression within Elokus itself. And that's where the world exists. The entire existence of the world remains within that context of Elokus. I want to try to explain, if this idea makes any sense, I'll try to add an additional point here. We know Chassidus teaches us that when we say that Hashem created the world in 6 days and rests on the seventh, this is not just in the 6 days of creation. This is every week. For 6 days Hashem creates, and the seventh day Hashem rests. Right? Maybe we spoke about this in one of the previous shiurim. So the question, because Chassidus asked this question, Chassidus says, what do you mean? If Hashem created the world through speech, and the speech is constantly necessary in order to keep the world in existence, then what happens on Shabbat? When we say Hashem rests on Shabbos, what does it mean? It means Hashem stops speaking. So if Hashem stops speaking on Shabbos, how does the world exist? That's the question that Chassidus asks. If Hashem stops speaking on Shabbos, how does the world exist? If the world only existed by the power of Hashem's speech. So Chassidus gives this answer. Chassidus says, because on Shabbos Hashem stops speaking, and Hashem continues to create the world by the power of his divine thoughts. There's what's called oisios hadibur and oisios hamachshava, letters of speech and letters of thought. 6 days of the week Hashem creates the world through oisios hadibur. On Shabbos Hashem creates it through oisios hamachshava. This is what Chassidus says. Okay. Now, what's the difference between speech and thought and speech? So, with regard to Hashem, so we use a human being as a moshel to understand the difference between thought and speech with regard to Hashem. By a human being, speech is revealed, thoughts are hidden. Speech is communicated to another person, thoughts remain within ourselves, right? That's what, Baruch Hashem, human beings don't know what other human beings think most of the time. If you're intuitive, you can kind of pick it up, but still, machshava, the thoughts of a person, generally speaking, remain confined within the person themselves. This is called machshava is behelem, dibur is begilum. So with regard to a human being, we say dibur is lazulas, words are to someone else. Machshava is latman, machshava is to yourself. So it is with regard to Hashem. We say Hashem creates the world six days of the week. Hashem works, meaning there's an expression, there's something coming, there's a revelation, there's a godly manifestation of some sort. On Shabbos, the world exists. The world is elevated to the level of Hashem's thought, where the world's existence comes from Hashem's thought. This is the way Chassidus explains it. But then Chassidus goes a step deeper. Chassidus says, you can learn this concept and you can misunderstand it. When it comes to Shabbos, we say, the Possuk says, Vayachulu hashamayim v'ha'oretz v'chol tzivom. That means that on Shabbos, the literal translation of the words Vayachulu hashamayim v'ha'oretz v'chol tzivom means on Shabbos Hashem finished creating the world. That's what we say, right? When we make Kiddush on Friday night. On the seventh day, Hashem finished Malach Yeshua, the work that he did. The commentaries all struggle with this. What do you mean? Did Hashem finish on the sixth day? Did Hashem finish on the seventh day? Right? Which one is it? Hashem finished on the seventh. Hashem finished on the seventh day. So which one is it? Did he finish on the seventh day? Did he finish in 6 days? Chassidus says no. He finished creating it. So Rashi actually says that he created on the 6th day, so close to the end that it looked like he created on the 7th day, right? Bein Hashmoshes, he was still finishing to create stuff. But Chassidus says there's a much deeper explanation. Chassidus says the pshat is like this. The pshat is Hashem didn't create anything on the 7th day. Nothing. What did Hashem do on the 7th day? So why do we say Vayichulu Hashemayim v'Ha'aretz on the 7th day? Because on the 7th day, Hashem showed the truth. Hashem showed the truth of creation. Hashem exposed the truth of creation itself on Shabbos. Meaning, for the 6 days, Hashem created through speech. Speech, when you look at it from the outside, when you look at it superficially, look at it like by a human being, speech is external. Speech leaves a person. So for 6 days, a person could think that when Hashem created the world, he created the world outside of himself, because Hashem kept speaking. Comes the 7th day and Hashem stops speaking. Now Hashem is only thinking, and even as Hashem continues to think, the world continues to exist. Says Chassidus, Vayichulu Hashemayim v'Ha'aretz v'chol tzvaam. Now on Shabbos, the truth of existence is revealed, not just on Shabbos. The truth of the existence of the world, even throughout the 6 days of creation, is also revealed. Because now you can see on Shabbos, that the world was never separated from Hashem in the first place, even during the 6 days of creation. It's not the pshat that for 6 days of creation Hashem created a world, and then on the 7th day Hashem elevates the world to Himself. Hashem makes the world holy. No, then we wouldn't say and we wouldn't say that on Shabbos Hashem finished creating the world. We would say Hashem created the world in 6 days, and on Shabbos elevated the world. No, the Shabbos shows us the truth of the existence of the world, even during the other 6 days of creation. That's why on Shabbos we say that when Hashem rested and elevated the world to the level of Kedusha, where it's clearly it's one with Hashem in a revealed way, that's the conclusion of the creation of the world. Now you can see the truth of the world. I'll give you my own analogy, right? It's an analogy of my own. An artist paints a painting, let's say, right? An artist paints a painting. So I'm not an artist, not even close. But the way I understand, the really gifted artists, when they paint paintings and they paint images, they paint sunsets or whatever the case may be, excuse me, psychologically, they go to a place excuse me. No. Oh, I got it to stop. Baruch Hashem. You still with me? An artist paints a painting, right? So they paint they paint a waterfall, let's say, right? So what they do is, the really gifted artists, psychologically, they kind of go into a bit of a trance. They imagine themselves standing in a place where there's a waterfall and where there's a sunset and where there's mountains and valleys and birds and grass and yada, yada, yada. As they're painting, they can sometimes even lose track of time and even lose complete awareness of where they are and who they are and everything. And just kind of like allow the scene that they're picturing in their mind to flow through them. And as they do, they paint. And after a couple of hours, they come out of the trance, right? The painting is finished. And they take a look and, oh my God, and there it is. And it's this gorgeous painting. Okay? So now let me ask you a question. So what's the difference between an artist painting a painting or an artist imagining that they're painting it? Imagining that they're painting sounds like a dumb question. Between an artist painting a painting or an artist imagining that they're painting a painting? What would happen if the artist would close their eyes and imagine themselves painting a painting, and imagine the whole thing? Imagine they have paint and brushes and a huge canvas, and imagine themselves going into a trance and lose themselves into it and paint and paint and paint and paint and paint. And for hours later in their mind, the painting is gorgeous. It's perfect, exactly the way they imagined it. Or between that and actually physically holding a canvas and paint. Well, the difference from a psychological experience, the experiences are very similar. From a psychological perspective, the experiences are very similar. Whether you actually paint it or whether you just imagine that you're painting it, the experiences are very similar because it's like this trance that they go into. The difference is going to be in the end whether there's actually a painting or not. If there's an actual painting, then the artist has something to show for this experience. Otherwise, if there isn't, it's just an imagination. And the figment of the when the imagination is over, the painting that was painted in their imagination completely ceases to exist. So Alter Rebbe wants us to understand that when the Eibishter created the world, it's both. It's both the artist that imagines the painting being painted, and it's the artist actually painting the painting. It's like a combination of, has the milus of both, if you will. That means that the world that the Eibishter actually created exists entirely within a divine, godly experience or trance that Hashem goes into, where he imagines, or where he speaks this existence into being, all within himself. So we say that Hashem spoke the world into existence and the world came to be, because if we didn't use the analogy of speech, then it would be like an artist who just imagines that they paint a painting, where no actual painting actually exists. On the other hand, when it comes Shabbos, we say, Vayechulu Hashemayim v'aretz v'chol tzvaim, that the conclusion of all of creation is experienced on Shabbos, when the world exists just by virtue of Hashem's oisius hamachshava, because now we can see the truth. The truth is that this painting or this creation that Hashem has made exists completely within himself. There's no paintbrush outside of himself. There's no canvas outside of himself. It's all within him. And so the world exists in a state of bittul. The existence of the world exists in a state of bittul, of oneness with Hashem, of unity with Hashem. In the words of the Alter Rebbe, like Oyer Hashemesh, like the light of the sun, as it exists within the sun himself. Oh, and this, the Alter Rebbe says, it's not like nefesh v'guf, not like body and soul. Body and soul, the soul has to invest itself within the body. Means that would be like saying the painter has to actually paint a painting. There's got to be paint and canvas and brush, and these things are outside of himself. That's an appropriate analogy by nefesh v'guf. As opposed to the creation of the world, it's all completely within Hashem. If so, the conclusion is when the Possuk says "Ein oid," nothing that Veyadata Levovecha Hashem Elokim Hashemayim Ein oid. Ein oid means nothing else exists outside of Hashem. They're completely bottled b'metzias l'gabed varavaya, connected to the word of Hashem. Ruach piv yisborech hamyuchodim b'muhusay v'atzmusay yisborech. The words of Hashem are completely one with the essence of Hashem. As the Alter Rebbe says, as will be explained later. So later, the Alter Rebbe will deal with this. Alter Rebbe will say, wait a second. We keep talking about the relationship between the world and Hashem's words, right? Hashem's oisiyos. I'm telling you, it's not just oisiyos adibru, it's oisiyos machshava. But that Alter Rebbe doesn't really discuss in Tanya, if I remember correctly. We keep talking about the relationship between the world and Hashem's oisiyos. But what about the oisiyos themselves? So later in Shaar Hayichud V'Haemuna, the Alter Rebbe will go a step deeper. The Alter Rebbe will talk also about the relationship between these oisiyos that Hashem uses to create the world and to recreate every single second. The relationship between those oisiyos and Hashem himself. That these oisiyos are also one with Hashem. Kibitul oyer shemesh b'shemesh. Rak shehein hein gvuroisav b'midas hagvura v'atzimtzum. There is this attribute of Hashem called midas hagvura, which is able lahastir ulahalim hachayis hashefei abahem, which is able to completely conceal the godliness that is manifest in the creation. Shiyunirim hashemayim v'horetz v'chol tzvom ki'ilu heim dovar bifnei atzmai, as if it should appear, it should feel, it should seem as if all of Hashem's created existence actually exists. So it would be like making a painting, and it would be like imagining that we're making a painting, and in our imagination, the painting feels like it really exists, right? Or it's like dreaming that a lion is chasing me, and in the dream, the lion actually thinks that it is. The lion in my dream feels like it's actually chasing me, which would, of course, just be part of my dream. So we are like that painting that the painter is imagining exists, that feels itself as an existence. Now, it's important when we talk about this, not to come to the conclusion that Hashem didn't really create a world, because that's also not true. Hashem did. It's just that the world that Hashem creates exists completely within himself. Okay. As if it exists independently. Let's finish the parak. This concealment of where we don't see or feel godliness is only to us. From Hashem's perspective, there's no concealment at all, right? Hashem can see that even the lion in his dream, who feels like he's really chasing him, is not really chasing him. Like the light of the sun that exists within the sun itself. And the Gvur of Hashem is not creating a real concealment, God forbid, because it's not an existence within itself. Ella, rather, as we learned before in the end, Hashem's attribute of Gvura, of concealment, and Hashem's attribute of Chesed, of kindness and revelation, are really one and the same. They're completely united. That means that even when Hashem conceals, that itself is also one with Hashem. That is also a manifestation of Hashem. And so in the end, all of existence is really just a revelation of the truth and the unity of Hashem, whether we feel it more or whether we feel it less. Either way, this is the truth. And through studying Chassidus and internalizing it, we hope to live this way and to experience it on a true level. All right, everybody have a kosher and a freilich and Pesach.